morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of EdTalk World, where the education world talks. Today, we have Professor Samar Ahmed with us. Ms. Ahmed, who is an MSc, MD, JMHPE, is the Associate Dean of Academic Affairs at Dubai Medical College for Girls and the founding director of the Ainshams Middle East, North Africa, FAIMER Regional Institute for Health Professional Education. With expertise in forensic medicines and toxicology, she serves as the chair of the Center of Excellence in Forensic Psychiatric Research at Ainshams University. As a certified UNESCO trainer and global commercial advisor to the universities and medical schools, Professor Samar is known for her exceptional leadership and execution skills. She envisions a network of healthcare reformers collaborating across borders to defy limitations and create positive change. So without any ado, let me quickly introduce her to all of you. Hello, Samar. Welcome to EdTalk. How are you doing today?
Hi, I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Samar, for taking out your valuable time and joining our session and educating a lot of us. So it's been a pleasure, and it's really great to have you on board today.
Love being here. Thank you so much.
To start our interview, Samar, I have a very quick question for you regarding the diversity in education. What we all want to understand is, what is your take on education management and how to manage the diversity which we are having in education stream?
Excellent question. Thank you so much for starting with this. And it kind of falls into my area of research and my area of questioning. This is a question that we all ask ourselves every day in education management. How exactly do we utilize all our capacities and all the tools that we have in order to make sure that we are really managing the diversity in the education field well? And managing diversity does not just mean that we speak multiple languages or we accept various manifestations of religions or cultures, but rather it is a broader term where we need to make sure that the learning styles and the learning capacities of different walks of life are also taken into account when we are planning for our education. And this is where education management really starts to struggle, because people are coming from different backgrounds and from different even educational backgrounds, and they all sit together in one classroom. And this is where we need to start utilizing all the skills that we have in order to make sure that we are addressing the individuality that exists in our classroom. And this is why we need to be trained for that, and we also need to be well-versed to accepting different cultures and accepting different views in education. We see this even as grown-ups, as adults in the field of education. We don't usually fall standing on our feet when it comes to a multicultural environment in education. We have our struggles as well. But we are better to deal with it than students. So we need to make our students' lives easier by mobilizing all the resources we can to understand the individuality that the classroom has at the moment.
Thank you so much, Samar, for shedding some light on and also to make us aware about the diversity in education. Coming from you, actually, we're going to help us a lot and have. So thank you so much for this. Coming down to my second question, Samar, according to you, what do you think? Or I would say, let me get this straight for you. According to you, what's the meaning of education contextualization? If you can shed some light on this.
Beautiful question. Contextualization is actually the issue that we are dealing with at the moment, because we all know that there is a problem when you come to try to standardize educational reform all over the world. We start bringing in standards from all over the world and trying to implement them in the different contexts inside our schools. In the Middle East is one of them. I mean, the Middle East is not the only issue, but the Middle East is a place where a lot of contextualization needs to happen, because many of the standards that we are utilizing are imported. Like, for example, using standards of education that we use for postgraduate training. There are no regional standards, and we have to import. And even the regional standards that exist are built on international standards. The question here is, how do we put this into the context where it will be implemented? And having said that, this is not something that we can just identify by saying that we will contextualize or we will adapt. This is a big job. It's a big job that no one really has a proper recipe for. And a large amount of our work has been devoted to the area of contextualization, and to see how exactly do we contextualize? What does it mean when you say contextualize reform, or contextualize, adapt to local context? What does that mean? Does this mean changing language? Does it mean making sure that the terminology is acceptable in the place where it's used? Or does it maybe transcend to a broader term that is a little bigger than that, where everything about the imported strategy needs to be revised, starting from the acceptability of this strategy and whether or not the local context will allow for this type of standardization. There is beauty in standardization, but there is also beauty in leaving things grassroots, in leaving things as they were, in utilizing the individual expertise that exists in the different contexts. So how do you contextualize? Do you just contextualize by doing these minor changes, or do you have to be immersed into the culture, really immersed in the culture, into the culture, before making decisions like huge decisions like curriculum reform, for example, or adapting to specific standards, or aligning with standards that exist out there? So my advice on this would be, don't try to contextualize to a culture that you haven't been immersed in. You have to be fully immersed into this culture for some good time, live the culture itself before trying to adapt anything or contextualize anything for it. I hope that answers your question.
That does answer, Samar. Thank you so much for making a lot of us aware that what exactly the term contextualization means and how this will gonna affect in our education. So thank you so much for enlightening us, a lot of us, I would say. You also mentioned in your answers that in order to grow further, there are some changes required. So now my next question to you is, according to you, what changes you would like to see in the education system, talking nearly about a decade from now?
You will be surprised to know that despite the fact that I have years and years in educational management, many years in education management, and many years in working with quality of education as well, that I think that great harm has been inflicted on education by the mere concept of quality of education alone. So quality of education on its own is problematic if it's not coupled with a will for innovation and a will for individualization. So if people just follow standards like many places in the world are happening, like, for example, taking preset answers, like, for example, saying that problem-based learning is the best way to go about learning. We just can't, I can't endorse that. I can't approve that. I cannot just go for problem-based learning because I've heard that in many places in the world it's working. It will not work unless it is bound to work in this specific context. So again, in order to be able to inflict this innovative change, I think the educator, the local educator, the educator in the world, they need to be adapted with the capacity to innovate. So innovation is a must, and it becomes even more needed now. The more we transcend into the globalization, the global world, where everything is mobilized across boundaries very easily, and people just start adopting things across boundaries as if the solutions exist somewhere outside. So if the educator doesn't have his own individualized capacity for innovation, we kind of become like a picture, a distorted picture of each other, which is not very good in education, if you ask me.
Thank you so much, Samar, for making us aware about the changes. And definitely, I see that in the next decades, these changes would be done in order to grow further into this education. Coming out from you, Samar, also one thing that we would want to understand after investing so much of your time, so much of your energy in the education system, according to you, what do you think that's the most important skill or quality of an educator to possess? And how can these skills be developed in someone like us?
So an educator needs to understand that no one has the perfect solution or the perfect answer. An educator needs to understand that the perfect solution for education has not been found yet, and that they still need to be experimenting to find that perfect recipe that works for them in that specific place in their classroom with this specific student. So a good educator would be an educator who is always open to the next best answer, rather than settling for what they already know or what exists out there. So this would be the number one quality, in my opinion, that makes a better educator. And in order to be able to do that, educators need to understand that they have to train themselves for not settling for anything that is mediocre, like working their way towards improving of what already works, rather than just focusing on improving what has not been working. This is how we mobilize all our education towards excellence, rather than just settling for covering a gap that exists in education.
Right. Thank you so much, Samar, for taking us for helping us out in order to understand the quality that is required. A lot of us talking majorly about the educator. This indeed will definitely going to help a lot of us. Coming down to my final question to you, Samar, is that things are evolving now. We, as compared to the last decade, this decade we are moving more towards the technologies, letting the technology taking care for a lot of us, starting with the day-to-day activities, and in fact, in every agriculture, in every domain now, technologies are evolving. So, according to you, how can technology helps the bridge or the digital divide and ensure that all the students have access to the high quality education, I'm sorry.
You know what comes to my mind when you ask this question? Anatomy. And I just ask myself, how on earth in the 1990s did we learn anatomy? How did we learn anatomy? And how did we get to this place where we understand where muscles come from and nerves come from? And the students of today, they have so much more niche and technologies out there that help them. They don't need to visualize anything, they actually see everything. There is this anatomage, there's many anatomy softwares that exist out there. Life is much easier now for students to start learning. They don't really need to use their imagination to grasp concepts that they need to know. But this is a double-edged sword, as they would say, because our students of today have also lost the capacity to imagine, and they have lost the capacity to innovate and create, which is the higher order level thinking that needs to happen in education in order to ensure that we have really reached all levels of education that we need to reach. So we have an issue there where students are starting to rely more on technology than relying on developing the individual skills of innovation and creativity. So this would be the challenge of the coming era. But is technology useful and beneficial? Absolutely. It's useful, it's beneficial, it saves time. We just need to know what we will do with the rest of the time that we have saved on our hands. How will we ensure that our students are utilizing this time to make better improvement and progress of their own personalities and their own capacity? This is one thing. The second thing, communication will become a big issue. It's becoming an issue now. People are finding it really hard to stay on one phone call for more than a second. They want to write everything on WhatsApp and just send it out there and just get it over with. So are our students. But we have professions out there like medicine, for example, where students will actually need to learn to communicate. So we will need to invest more time in making sure that our students have the capacities to do this interpersonal communication and the interprofessional communication that they need to be able to function in their profession and in the community. But technology is coming, technology is big. I come from an era where I used to write my thesis using a pencil. Remember that time? You weren't even born, but it was there. I transcend from that era into an era where I stopped using a laptop now and then doing everything on my phone. So this is how quick in one lifetime we are progressing and we are developing. So we need to understand that information is no longer an issue. Information is out there and it's accessible and it's easy to get. It's not the issue, and this is not what we need to fill the heads of our students with. We need to fill their heads with something alternative that they will be able to utilize in the workplace and in their quest for finding the knowledge that they need. But the era is coming. It looks like it's going to be a happy one, and it looks like we will have a lot of jobs that will not exist anymore, that we will be substituted by other new jobs that we need to get ourselves adapted for.
Beautifully way to answer the technologies ensures about the education. This was an amazing, and thank you so much, Samar, for taking out your time today and joining us in this enlightening sessions, which is definitely for all of us. Once again, I couldn't thank you more for taking out your valuable time and educating us and helping us to understand the power of education, the diversities and the changes that we would be seeing in the next couple of years in the education system. So thank you so much again, Ms. Samar, for joining us and taking out your valuable time and joining us again on this online platform.
Thank you so much for having me. It was really interesting and I enjoyed my time so much. And hopefully this will be of use to you and your spectators and listeners. And we'll meet again, inshallah.
This would definitely, and we will again connect in future sometime to discuss the trending topics that we have in the education system. Coming from you, I would say would be definitely lasting for all of us.
Lovely. Thank you so much. I'll be looking forward.
Thank you, Samar. For our viewers, before we end, I would request you to please like this chat. If you have a lot of coming us from all of us, and this was Krish with Samar Ahmed today, signing off for today.